This is the Women's World Cup Daily. Adam Collins and Andrew Fidel Fernando with you for Lacuna Sport. Focus on your game. Lacuna has your kit covered. More about our great mates at Lacuna later in the show. To start, another disappointing washout at Colombo. 30-second summary of the 26 balls bowled between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, delivered by Fidel. Hello.
Hi. When the game actually did get underway and there was a big break before any play could even begin, Malki Madhur was swinging it particularly into the right-handers. Muni Bali had quite a testing time playing her out, but that was about as much as we got to see. Just 4 decent overs in what were difficult batting conditions, and then the rains returned, and then there was threat of them coming back on because it stopped for a while, but then the rains came back again. It all got called off by about 8:30, and only 4.2 overs possible.
I heard Sophie Devine speaking the other night about the terrible situation with New Zealand having a couple of washouts and saying something to the effect of, we trained for years for World Cups, bilateral series, all the high performance work that's done behind the scenes that we're never privy to, all of the sort of strategic and tactical stuff going into a World Cup, the ICC Women's Championship, which spans the cycle in 50 over cricket, then to rock up and for one of the venues in a monsoon season, having games reallocated there, 5 of them washed out, 2 other majorly rain affected. It's been an absolute shambles. And I feel desperately for the players of, the teams most affected, with Sri Lanka, 3 washouts, Pakistan, 3 washouts, New Zealand, 2 washouts. This is no reflection on Sri Lanka as a suitable host for global tournaments. It's absolutely no reflection on your hometown of Colombo, Fidel. But the very fact that, and we've come back to it time and again, the ICC saw their fix here, their political problem, BCCI and PCB, and the diplomacy issues that underpin all of this, to move games to a city in monsoon season in a World Cup. It's outrageous. If this was a normally governed sport, if this was a sport that was governed in a way and scrutinised in a way that other sports were, and we didn't just shrug our shoulders to the decision-making process because we're all so tired of the way that it operates time and time again, there'd be actual scrutiny over this. In reality, this tournament will come and go. There'll be the semi-finals, Australia, South Africa, England and India. Let's hope they're 2 cracking semis and an even better final. But I'll always feel sorry for and remember the teams who were so affected by the decision-making process that led to all of these washouts.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the rainfall charts for the last, 20 years, and it doesn't take that much of a genius to figure out that October, you're running into some serious weather problems in Colombo pretty much every single year. So, and this has happened on previous tours as well. It's not as if the data didn't exist that this is a bad time to come to this part of the world. What I will say is that, yeah, I mean, if you go right back, this is down to the decision that was made pre the men's Champions Trophy this year, when India refused to go to Pakistan as part of that. The India men's team refused to go to Pakistan as part of that tournament. Maybe the roots of it are back in the Asia Cup in 2023, actually. But essentially, that decision then had a string of knock-on effects. Pakistan then at the ICC level said, okay, well, if India aren't playing in our country, we're not going to play there, so we need to find neutral venues for every major tournament. Then Pakistan women, who hadn't at that point qualified, did end up qualifying in the qualifier in March, and then this became the first global tournament that is affected by the current state of things. Yeah, I think you're right. We shouldn't normalize it. It's it's a very clear-cut example of the politics of the region devaluing cricket, because it's having a real tangible effect on the fact that even things like people in Colombo don't go out to watch matches. So even on the days during this time of year, because it rains, and so even on the days that we did get to see some cricket, and there were a couple of matches that went the full 100 overs, you didn't get great crowds because this is just not, first of all, it wasn't marketed especially well because of the short kind of run-in that Colombo had in this World Cup. And second, it was just people just weren't able to get behind this World Cup and get behind the Sri Lanka team as they might otherwise have done. But there's this all, cricket is paying the price for politics in the region. And I think through the Men's Asia Cup that's just concluded in the UAE and in this World Cup, that is painfully clear. It's just, it's and India's heft in terms of the economy also kind of plays a big role in that.
Yeah, look, and the alternative world here is that this would have been at least partially held in the UAE, right? And we all know it's more expensive to hold these tournaments in the UAE. But when we hear the line that this is going to be the best tournament ever, the most prize money, all the rest of it, to have a fifth of the games washed out, and it's worse than that when you just look at Colombo. Obviously, should the investment not have been made to have had it in the UAE? If we were serious, we would have put the cricket first. But easy, logistically straightforward, cheaper. Oh well, near enough's good enough, and near enough's not good enough when you're at this stage of the women's game and the development of the women's game. We're talking about 8 sides who've battled hard to qualify to get here. Well, some harder than others because, of course, the ranking system as it is, and some outstanding teams in the tournament who always qualify and the host and all the rest of it, and that's fine. But there are a number of teams here who've had to scrap and fight like hell to get here. And to have their tournaments so desperately compromised the way that they have, and Pakistan's an example of that, and Sri Lanka is another. And you consider the gains that Sri Lanka made over the last, we'd say 2.5 to 3 years, the success against New Zealand, the success against England stand out, 2 series wins there, that we could arrive at this tournament and they weren't meant to be the host. They've been at a disadvantage structurally to have their games played in Sri Lanka because so many of them have been washed out. So going from a tournament that's been billed as, well, this should be the best tournament ever, you could build a case that it's the worst World Cup of the modern era on the basis of the percentage of games that have been washed out. And that could have been avoided had these games not been played in Colombo. But again, the lack of scrutiny widely. I sometimes feel like the ICC, Fidel, is like a major government department and there's no opposition. There should be competitive tension about the way that decisions are made like this. There should be push and pull, and the best decision should come from administrators scrapping at the highest tables of the game. But the reality is those brawls, to the best of my knowledge and the way that we interpret the public commentary, don't happen because other full members acquiesce to the wants of one. And then when the brawl with Pakistan played out quite publicly earlier in the year around the hosting of the Champions Trophy and compromises needed to be made for these tournaments later in the year, the Asia Cup and, of course, this tournament. The fact that we didn't come to a unified position around making sure the cricket came first is another example of this. Where were the other members of the supposed big three getting out there on the front foot publicly if needs be, saying you can't move it to Sri Lanka? Are you kidding? Colombo in the monsoon seasons, where was that? Where do we see those comments? It's the game being sacrificed and the scrutiny's not there. Like I say, it's like a government department without an opposition. And this is what you get.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's been clear for a while now that Cricket Australia and the ECB, who are the only, maybe with a little bit of PCB support, are the only boards that can possibly stand up to India, who control such a huge chunk of the game economically, that they're essentially a superpower, and they're doing what superpowers tend to do, which is attempt to impose their will in every situation. But we've seen, you go back as far as 2014 to when the first Big Three takeover happened. ECB and Cricket Australia are more interested in making, essentially taking the crumbs that fall off India's table, or joining their kind of run on the game in terms of revenue. And I'm not saying that cricket shouldn't make revenue and profits, but we are now very clearly seeing that this hugely imbalanced economic system is having tangible effects on the game. It is affecting competitive equilibrium. It is affecting. It's not just that some teams come to the game under resourced and other teams have a lot of resources. It's that the teams that don't have as much of a say at the table end up getting structurally disadvantaged. As you mentioned, Sri Lanka and Pakistan are the two biggest losers here. Two of the weaker boards, you're not part of that big three, certainly. And so, that continues to happen. Also happened in the Asia Cup, where the ACC, has played tournaments that clearly benefit that India-Pakistan tie. So I think this is the way that cricket is going. It will take a lot of people kind of drawing a line and saying we can't allow, this can't become sports entertainment where structurally there are too many advantages being given to some teams. There has to be, for this sport for people to feel full buy-in from other countries, it has to feel like a fair sport. And it's this World Cup again is one that puts a little bit of a dent in your belief in cricket.
Yeah, that's well summed up. It's just I can't avoid that, that point to be made again, that if the game was serious about what it says and about backing it up, we just wouldn't be in this situation with this particular tournament. And I again, I'm thinking of the players, think about the champions from both teams, but especially someone like Chamari Atapatu, right? What she
Who may have played
has
her
provided.
last World Cup game.
That's what I was
Today.
thinking as well.
Yes.
A decent chance that's her last World Cup game, right? A sodden, sorry affair at the Primadasa. How different it could have been. And yet, of course, it did mean that, again, I come back to that previous one, it did mean Sri Lanka did get home games, but what does that matter when 3 of your fixtures have been washed out? 3 of 7 games washed out in a World Cup. I know, and look, Jeff and I made this point on the weekly show. It can rain any old place, any old time. There have been World Cups that have been rain affected before, but there's a difference between you getting an unlucky run, like in the 2019 Men's World Cup, where we had a sodden week in June, which is typically the driest month in England of a year. So, the data points to one thing, bit of bad luck, such is life. This being the monsoon season, no one can make these types of excuses. They knew what they were doing. They were running the gauntlet. And to the extent to which there's scrutiny, it's probably, conversations like this are about as far as it goes. There'll be articles written and all the rest of it, but we'll move on because that's the nature of the game. It's not a very good one for finish lines. We just move on to the next thing and the next thing, and the dependent relationship as it relates to India, and how unwilling other boards are to piss them off is more glaring by the day, by the month. The lack of scrutiny is profound, and this is the situation. You see it on days like today. Fidel, we're going to, in the Hall of Fame today, we'll flip it around and we'll do a bit of analysis on Sri Lanka and Pakistan's tournament that was, because of course there was no game to talk about, so I thought it was worthwhile backing over all that again. Before we get there, we will briefly tell you about, not briefly, but I haven't had a run in the park on Lacuna Sports for a while here, getting men, piss off, men. In this context, we do not care about men. Women into teamwear that fits. Plenty of men's teamwear that fits. I've had it my whole life. Women, on the other hand. So if you're running a cricket club, women and girls often have to wear the men's kit. I've seen that my whole life, where we've had girls wearing boys' kit, cutting off the bottom of the trousers. Classic case in point there. Well, ask your girls and women as you're trying to grow your club, does their kit work for them? If it doesn't, and I bet you it doesn't if they're wearing boy stuff or wearing small men's stuff, go to lacunasports.co.uk. Lacuna Sports UK is the Instagram handle. And you can go straight there, and crucially, they will work with you on consultation. So Scottish clubs, Lomond Links and RHC Links, based in Falkland, Fife. Lee and Katie, who we've been working with at Lacuna, Lee, who's the founder and an absolute legend, and Katie, who's been outstanding to work with as well, went to Scotland in the spring to meet with new teams and fit out all the women and girls in that perfect kit. We've got links through here on the Lomond Links Instagram too about how good it looks. So wherever you are in the UK specifically, now is the perfect time in the clothes season to schedule in a consultation for next summer. And if you're around the world, that's cool too. Get in touch with them and they'll work with you. I guarantee if you're a club in some far-flung part of the cricketing world, i.e. where I'm from, let's say in Melbourne, which is 10,000 miles away, you get in touch with Lacuna Sports and they will do the rest. So Lacuna Sports UK, lacunasports.co.uk, outstanding partners of ours here on the Final Word Daily, which will continue in a moment after the break. All right, Final Word Daily. We're nearing the end of the group stages. Sorry day today at Colombo. So instead of talking about, Fidel, the game itself in any more detail, acknowledging we've still got group games on the weekend. Australia playing South Africa at the Whole Garden Road Indoor Ground, I love. And then we've got games at Mumbai and between India and Bangladesh and England and New Zealand, respectively. All dead rubbers as far as the Final Four are concerned, but those games will dictate where teams finish. But 2 teams are finished in Sri Lanka and Pakistan, as we mentioned before. Sri Lanka ending up with 1 win, Pakistan winless. They both had their moments, Fidel, especially Pakistan. I find it remarkable. They're the only team who actually haven't won a game in the comp, 4 losses and 3 no results for the 3 points in total.
Yeah, and I do feel really sorry because they were on the verge of what would have been an epic victory against England. Bowled them out cheaply. The openers were doing the job, and then the rains came and washed out any hope of what would have been the biggest upset of this World Cup. Yeah, I feel really sorry to them for that, but huge fan of the way that they played. I know that the results haven't been great, but Fatima Sana, especially the way she's led this team from the front, bowled an outstanding spell against England and has been pretty good through the rest of the tournament, and also was taking the time. Obviously they spent a lot of time in Colombo, the only team to play all their matches at one venue. Just to see them interacting with the people around the venue, that was nice to see as well. It was, I hope they've at the very least enjoyed their time here.
Yeah, just on Pakistan, they had Australia, the mighty Australia, perhaps the best women's cricket team ever assembled at this World Cup, 115 for 8. And with England, at one stage, they had them, it was 78 for 7 just before the rain scuppered that contest. I know that the way that it played out, there was no result there, and they didn't actually lose to England. They did lose to Australia. They lost their bundle with the ball there. But yeah, and they would have, they were 34 for none in the seventh over. Their DLS target was like 2 and over or something like that from that juncture or something ridiculous. So they would have won had the game at England not been washed out, and they had their chance against Australia. So, the Pakistan story, I think, is sometimes a little bit misunderstood because we think of them as being comparable to their men's team, but the reality is that they're far earlier in their journey because of women's cricket not being a thing in Pakistan until far later. So definitely one to watch in the ICC Championship, and the way they've been able to deploy their spinners through the tournament has been commendable. And yeah, Sri Lanka, I mean, Fidel, I know it's hard to avoid the Atapatu story, but also there have been other players in this tournament they'll be disappointed at not having played better in the big moments against India to start their campaign. They get one win in totality. But Sri Lanka are in a much better place than they were 4 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, I mean that they had India 100 for 6, I believe, before India recovered through their lower order, and Sri Lanka ended up losing that game. If they had just pushed through with got one or a couple more wickets at that period, maybe that would have really opened up this entire World Cup. I think Sri Lanka would be disappointed at the way they played in some of the games, but it's one days haven't been their best format. The sad part is it has been Chamari Atapattu's best format. If you think about her best innings, and her best innings are up there with the best that anyone's ever played. Those have all come in this format. So, if we are seeing the last of her, and, at 39, I still wouldn't count her out. She would be 39 when the next World Cup rolls around. She would still probably be deserving of a place in a Sri Lanka 11 because she's that good and shows shows no signs of slowing down, really. But yeah, if we've seen the last of her, she's given, she's the first women's cricketer to kind of get into that all-time Sri Lankan pantheon alongside the likes of Murali, alongside the likes of Sanat Jayasuriya. And, sometimes watching her bowl that last over against Bangladesh and taking it on herself to win that game from the edge, it felt almost like you were watching Jayasuriya, who is her favorite player, and Arjuna at the same time. It was like watching those two characters roll into one, but finding this incredible expression in Chamari Atapattu. So yeah, it's been an absolute joy watching her play. I hope we haven't seen the last of her in World Cups, but let's see.
No, I hope not. Hope you're spot on there. Chamari Atapattu, what a World Cup player she has been. We'll leave our program there for this evening. I mentioned we've got games across the weekend in the semi-final and the final. Every single moment of this tournament brought to you through our dedicated daily shows, and they're all because of Lacuna Sports. Focus on your game. Lacuna has your kit covered. Fidel, great to catch up as always, and we'll hear from you later in the tournament. And from a very wet Colombo, that's goodbye for us. We'll catch you tomorrow.